Hello everyone, my name is Zenitsu, and I'm back with another Digimon deck profile video. So today I'm going to be taking a look at EX06, and EX6 offers us lots of new and powerful tools in order to build and iterate on some new and existing decks. And today's deck that I'm going to be taking a look at is going to be the Blue Aquatic deck. So I am going to have to put this disclaimer up real quick in the fact that I have zero confidence in this deck. Yes, I did build this deck, yes, I did test this deck, and I came to the conclusion that this deck is just really bad. Like, it's honestly one of the worst decks you could play in this current meta environment level of bad. It has a lot of cute things going for it, but it does have a lot of things going against it at the same time, making it something that I really wouldn't commit to or tell people to play outside of a casual level. But as far as what the deck is actually doing, it's just playing around with the idea of splitting out its inheritable sources to flood and swarm the field, and then put them all back in when you're all done utilizing those cards, and rinse and repeat and do that again to be able to repeatedly reuse some pretty decent on-play abilities and to be able to customize the stack like no other deck has been able to before. But with that one caveat, there's just a lot of things that make the deck weak, because right now it only has one set of really good tools, and that's going to be, for the most part, the new tools that it got in EX6, and it kind of has to utilize some of the old tools which don't necessarily mesh or meld very well with the deck, which creates some incoherent combo play and gameplay in general. In terms of being able to build and generate resources, the deck is also really bad at that. It loses to lots of floodgates, it has poor Digimon quality, lack of protection, lack of damage, lack of removal. I could keep going as far as the deck's weaknesses go, because it's just not a very strong deck. But if you wanted to try to build it, this is as good as I can get the deck to be. So with all that said and done, let's just dive right into the deck profile, starting off with the Digitamas. I'm going to be running 4 copies of Bukamon from BT7 and 1 copy of EX6 Yokomon. So you technically don't really have to run the Yokomon if you don't want to. There's a couple of things that you could do with Yokomon and some of the other support cards that are pretty cute as far as being able to constantly add Digimon into your source, just so you could try to find ways to be able to spit them out and swarm the field that way. But I just found generating resources like memory to be able to make your plays more efficient with the BT7 Bukamon is just the better thing to do when it comes to how this deck actually functions. So when it comes to the level 3s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Gomamon. So this is the BT7 version of Gomamon, and because this deck actually doesn't have a dedicated digging or searching tool, we need to try to have some way to make up that loss of consistency somewhere, and this is just the best card to do it with, because its on-play ability states that when it's played from a Digivolution source, we get to draw 2 cards, which drawing 2 cards is obviously really good. The only caveat is, by the time we're actually utilizing this ability, we're already in our level 5 or our level 6, so it's not like it's helping the consistency when we need it on trying to find those specific parts and pieces, but it's better than having nothing. Then I'm also going to be running 4 copies of the BT15 Betamon. So this is arguably one of the best, if not the best, level 3 for this deck, because it natively comes with a jamming inheritable, but its on-play ability is really good at being able to try to shut down the opponent's overall aggression, because when this Digimon is played by an effect, one of the opponent's Digimon can't attack until the end of their turn, so we could use it to try to stave off as much damage as we possibly can. The only caveat is the fact that, again, it has to be played by an effect, and if the opponent is able to make like a raising play or just play a Digimon out of nowhere and be able to aggress that way, then this card really isn't doing a whole lot, and it's not like it's stopping the opponent's defensive plays either, so they could still potentially block with their Digimon. So you could already see just in the overall card quality, it's not necessarily the highest compared to where it should be in order to make this deck better. but we do have EX6 Biomon that I'm also going to be running 4 copies of because it has that same inheritable ability of jamming, so we could try to see it as consistently as possible, on top of the fact that when we're spitting out Biomon, even though she doesn't have an on-play ability, she just comes with the blocker effect native, which is still pretty good at having extra lines of defensive possibilities. And then the last card is a tech or flex spot. You don't have to run the 1 copy of Lunamon, and you could run anything else you feel like it would benefit the deck. I'm just running Lunamon, not for the inheritable ability, because we're never going to trigger that, more for the start of main ability, where we get to bounce one of our Digimon back into our hand and gain 2 memory. So we already know that the deck isn't the most memory efficient, and we also know that the deck wants to try to split out its inheritables and swarm the field, and this is a card that actually can take advantage of that when we line up this effect correctly, because we could use something like the Yokomon Egg to bounce an extra level 3 that's just chilling on our field to generate that 2 memory, and then swing and put it back into our inheritable sources with that Yokomon Egg. So that's just something you could possibly do, but again, it is just a tech or flex spot. Then when it comes to the level 4s, I'm going to be running 1 copy of BT15 Seadramon. So this is another card that comes with the jamming inheritable ability again, so we're not necessarily afraid of splitting out a jammer just because we have multiple instances of it, and it also comes with the native ability of Rush, so that way we could attack the player if we choose to split this out and we're able to maintain turn just to try to increase the overall aggression, or we could split apart a level 3, Digivolve into the Seadramon, and then still be able to get the Rush and use it rather cheaply and efficiently. Next, I'm going to be running 4 copies of the Promo Seadramon. So Promo Seadramon is going to be the most expensive card in the deck, and rightfully so, because it's one of the best cards in the entire deck. Its on-play and when digivolving ability allows our blue Digimon to not be deleted by battle until the end of the opponent's turn, so that way we could try to just recklessly swing, and its super jamming just allows us to even try to bypass the opponent's defenses, because if they block, our Digimon still won't be deleted. Then it also has a nice inheritable ability where when one of our other Digimon is played by an effect, one of our blue Digimon gains Rush for the turn, so that way when we're doing our whole source splitting shenanigans, that Digimon's going to have Rush, so we can make that Digimon be more aggressive as well. Then I'm going to be running 4 copies of the EX03 Ibidramon. So this is another high utility card because its on-play ability states that one of our blue Digimon gains the blocker ability until the end of the opponent's turn, again giving us more access at defensive lines of play, while also having a nice secondary part to that effect where then if this was played from the Digivolution source, then we also get to unsuspend that Digimon for more potential offensive and defensive plays. Then the last 2 cards are going to be 2 copies of Xiangpeng. So this is a resource generating card. It just on play draws us 1, and then if it's played from a Digivolution source, it also gains us a memory. So that way we could try to make our plays more memory efficient and our deck more consistent when this card is being split out due to some of our card effects playing it out. Then it also, again, has that inheritable ability of jamming, so we're not afraid of taking jamming cards out because we still should have jamming in our stack somewhere. Next, when it comes to the level 5s, I'm going to be running 4 copies of Huan Kunmon. So this is the best level 5 for the deck because it's, well, doing everything that we need the deck to do. It has an on-play and when digivolving ability where we get to play out a blue level 3 Digimon from one of our blue Digimon's Digivolution sources for free, which is allowing us to be able to split out our stacks to get those on-play abilities off of our rookies or just get the extra body on the field. Then it also has a really nice when attacking inheritable ability where once per turn, by placing one of our other blue Digimon to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, we get to unsuspend this Digimon, allowing us to have more potential offensive lines of play while putting the Digimon we obviously just split out back into our stack. Then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of Mega Seadramon from EX3. So there's lots of ways this deck has to put cards back into its stack, but not a whole lot of cards that actually are able to take cards out of the stack, and this is one of the few cards that can. So its when attacking ability states that we get to play a blue level 3 Digimon from one of our blue Digimon's Digivolution source for free, which again is really good at making sure we could try to split out our stack and reuse those Digimon. Then its inheritable ability is also the same as its native ability, it's just limited to once per turn, so that way we have an alternative way, whether we're utilizing this card as a level 5 or utilizing its inheritable ability to be able to constantly play out our level 3s so we could put them back in and do whatever else we want with them. And then I'm also going to be running 2 copies of the BT15 Mega Seedramon. So this Mega Seedramon is pretty decent at having consistency in the inheritable ability because it's doing the exact same thing as Hankunmon, but its on-play and when digivolving ability is what's obviously separating the cards, because this is acting as a removal piece where we get to place one of our other blue Digimon to the bottom of this Digimon's Digivolution source, and then we get to put to the bottom of the deck one of the opponent's Digimon whose level is equal to or less than the card we placed underneath this card, so we can try to have some flexibility on what we're going to be removing when we utilize this card. And then the last ultimate of the deck is going to be kind of an odd card. This really could just be a tech card filled in with anything you feel like you want it to be, but I really do think that this card is pretty decent at just offering something that the deck currently lacks, and that's having some good protection. So its inheritable ability is what I'm really looking to gain out of running 2 copies of Raiji Ludamon, because during all turns, once per turn, when this Digimon would be deleted other than by your own card effects, we get to trash out 1 card with Legend Arms in its traits from this Digimon's Digivolution source to prevent that deletion, which basically means we get to remove the Raiji Ludamon to protect our Digimon against deletion-based abilities, and his ability that triggers from our hand during our main phase is what's allowing us to be able to put him underneath our Digimon to begin with, because we get to pay 2, throw him underneath a Legend Arms traded card or one of our level 5 Digimons, and we also get to goad the opponent's Digimon into attacking. The goading part isn't what's important, it's more of the fact that the inheritable ability gives us some extra protection. It does need to be on our level 5 Digimon more specifically, which is one of the only drawbacks, but if we do have enough memory to utilize this card, it's still really strong, and we do have ways to be able to split out level 5 Digimon from our inheritable ability to at least to try to have alternative ways on utilizing this card. And then when it comes to the level 6s, obviously the big main level 6 is going to be the 4 copies of Xiangpengmon. So this is a really powerful card in of itself. It's just unfortunate that everything else around him is kind of weak and not really supporting the card the way it needs to be supported. So it does have an on-play and when digivolving ability where we get to place up to 3 of our other blue Digimon to the bottom Digivolution source of this card, and then we get to return all of the opponent's level 4 or lower Digimon back into their hand, and for each Digimon we placed utilizing this effect, we get to add 1 to the maximum level, so it can actually be a really decent board removal card when we're going into this Digimon. It's just setting up that large board state to get this ability to be as effective as it needs to be is the tricky part to begin with. But when we can line up this removal, it's very powerful and very potent. And then it even has a really powerful secondary ability where during your turn, once per turn, when an effect adds to this Digimon's Digivolution source, which it's on plane when Digivolving ability did, and we have other abilities to line up with it to be able to trigger this, then we get to play a level 5 or lower Digimon that has Aqua or Sea Animal as one of its traits from this Digimon's Digivolution source for free, so he has a way to basically put cards into him and take cards out of him. So we could try to toolbox what we need based on the stack that we have and what we have access to. And then the last level 6 Digimon could kind of just be anything you want it to be. I just found that Jumbo Gamemon is just more effective because the deck doesn't have a whole lot of ways of spitting out Digimon, but we have a ton of ways at putting Digimon back in, and Jumbo Gamemon is just one of the best Digimon at taking cards out because it has an ability where during the opponent's turn, when the opponent's Digimon attacks, we get to play a level 5 or lower Digimon from his Digivolution source for free, which is just really nice because this is not limited to once per turn, so the more they potentially attack, we could basically empty his entire inheritable sources while also having the blocker ability native to him to increase our overall defensive capabilities. And then when it comes to the level 7s, I kind of just ran out of space for a level 7, and I honestly don't think that the deck realistically needs a level 7. Obviously, Aegis-Dramon is just the best designed level 7 for the deck, but the deck is already so inefficient as is that I realistically can't use a level 7 efficiently, and there wasn't a level 7 that I really liked or was attached to by the time I was using it. So I just skipped that, and instead let's just go straight on to the Tamers, which the only Tamer the deck realistically needs is 3 copies of Davis from BT3 because it's just the best blue Tamer that's ever printed. So yes, he is a memory fixing Tamer, but what's making him the best is the fact that he's also a consistency tool looking at the top 3 for a blue and a green Digimon, so we're always going to be able to take a blue Digimon, and the fact that this deck really has consistency issues means that Davis is shoring up that weakness for us. And then when it comes to the options, I'm just going to be running the Memory Boost and Mental Training package because, again, the deck is really inefficient in those areas, and these cards are shoring up those inefficiencies. So with the remaining space that I have, I do feel like I kind of just need to run a big removal option, and Great Maelstrom is just one that's highly synergistic because if we have 2 Digimon on our field, we could put one of them into our Digivolution source to reduce the cost by 3, which makes this a 6 cost option versus a 9 cost, and it's returning the opponent's Digimon to the bottom of their deck, which is really good at removing problems while also still being a strong security threat. But yeah, for the most part, this is just my interpretation of the deck. Like I said before, this deck is just not very good at doing what it needs to be, and that's just the big unfortunate part at the end of the day, which is why I have a hard time recommending it to people, but I know people are curious on what this deck is capable of, and this is just what I was able to come up with on trying to make it work as much as I possibly could. But the deck does have some other cards that we could think about utilizing based on what you're expecting out of the deck, what the expected meta is going to be, what cards you have access to, and the abilities you're trying to prioritize. So there's just lots of different things that we can do to try to make this deck actually work. And it's not like this deck is actually dead in the water. It is kind of getting some support in BT17 with a new Labramon line, utilizing Labramon, Cicramon, and a brand new Tamer, which is really nice, on top of the fact that we also get a new Lanamon line, which also, again, is interacting with this style of play, so that way we actually can try to make the deck better in the future, and there might be even more support for this deck past BT18, so it might eventually turn into something that is good, even though it currently isn't good now.